So slowly and then all at once is how we go from having a blank book to write ourselves to having other people influencing what's being written or even writing it for us. So if that's the case, and we don't know if we're writing our own story or somebody else is writing it for us, how do we start to figure it out? Get things kicked off because it is 7:05 and I have been waiting. He's fine. I have been waiting for 7 o'clock on October 25th for weeks now. And I thought the best way to start tonight off was with an abundance of gratitude. Just, we don't give enough gratitude throughout life today and through the world. And I want to start just by thanking all of you for taking time out of your evening to come here. I've got a couple friends who have come from out of state. So I want to thank you because I know time is our most valuable resource. It is the only asset that we ever accumulate that we don't get any more of. And we can't compound it. So I appreciate you taking the time to come here. And I hope that there is something I say tonight that resonates and leads you to think about your life and what it is and maybe where you want it to be. So thank you. I also want to thank you for a gift that you didn't know that you're giving me. But there's a picture that I want to share. And I've talked about it on a podcast before and I've written about it. You may know what it is, but it is a little hard to see, but it's a picture of J. Cole on stage at Rolling Loud. So Rolling Loud is a big concert festival. J. Cole is one of my favorite hip-hop artists. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's him on stage and the crowd is packed. What you can't tell because it's a still, it's pouring down rain. Phones are out, the crowd is singing his songs. Like he stops for a moment, puts the microphone up, the crowd fills in the words, singing his song. And when I saw that, I told Ange, I said, just one time in my life, I want to experience that. I want to be on stage and looking out and seeing people who are there because they find value in the words I have to say, and I bring happiness to them. And this is my J. Cole at Rolling Cloud moment. So thank you for giving me that gift. Like you didn't even know you're giving me that, but this is that moment. I don't care that he had thousands of people and we have 20 people. The number never mattered to me. It just mattered that people thought what I had to say was interesting enough to come hear it. So thank you. I also want to thank Tristan and Jeremy for opening up Geist Coffee after hours. This is not something they do very often, but when I came up with the idea of doing this talk, this was the first location I thought of. I come here pretty much every Friday with the boys. I'm here a lot throughout the week. It's a special place for my family. And I just thought that the vibe and the energy here was perfect for the conversations that I would like to have. So Tristan and Jeremy, thank you very much for letting me do this. You contributed to my J. Cole moment as well. And I joked with them, I thought, one day in future, maybe I'll have my own Brene Brown style special on Netflix or something, and there'll be a backstory behind it, and this video will be a part of it. So thank you for that. And real quick, I also want to remind you that this is the first of 5 talks. I've tried to structure it so each talk is something that you can come to, and you won't miss out on any of the other ones if you don't come. So they stand on their own. I'm not going to cliffhang you into coming back in 2 weeks to find out what's next, but they all do compile together. If you can't come to any of them, don't worry. You see Morgan. She's videoing. I've got my camera going. Roman was supposed to do that tonight, but he's at basketball tryouts. These are all going to find their way to YouTube. They're all going to find their way to my podcast. So if you miss any, you'll be able to catch what you might have missed. And I will send it to anybody who came to the talk first. I have your emails. I promise not to spam you, but I'll send you the videos as they come out. You get first dibs at them, and then I'll release them to the public. So they will be coming. So the concept of, are you living someone else's life? There's something about that brought you here tonight, and hopefully we can uncover a little bit more. And I hope it's deeper than you just want to support me, because I appreciate the support, but I know there's hopefully something that pulled you in. When you think about living someone else's life and what that means, it's kind of hard to understand. So I thought it's easier to start with a story. And before I get to the story, getting to this moment of talking about something like this was something that I had a little bit of fear of when I first started writing and putting it out there, because I never wanted to unintentionally offend somebody. And when you start talking about your life's purpose and what it is that you're doing, you start getting into faith and religion and belief systems. And my fear was I would choose the wrong word to describe something and somebody would get upset and never move forward. So I want to ask you, as we get into tonight's thing, I want you to not miss the forest for the trees. So the things we're going to talk about, I'm going to talk about. Think about it from the bigger picture tonight, which would be the forest. And then tomorrow, think about the details and how they play into your life and your belief system. Because what I realized is that a lot of our belief system, when you get to the core, they're all very similar. Just common principles. Treat each other with love. We all come from a creator who were created from that creator. We have unique gifts that we've been blessed with to share with the world. Like, that's common themes across different belief systems. So don't get lost in the individual details. Think of the bigger story. And what I also realized is that, and what gave me confidence to write and share this, is that I can't control how my words are received. All I can control is where those words come from and what my intentions are. So if I unintentionally offend somebody because I happen to say the universe instead of God, or vice versa, my intentions were pure. It was coming from my heart. I was trying to inspire and convey using a word. And if that were to be something that somebody didn't like, I can't control that because that's not on me. And when I realized that, as long as I know that where I'm coming from is good, then I don't have to worry about if somebody is upset with what I said, because that is something that's going on internal with them, and it's not so much for me. So with all of that, getting back to, are we living someone else's life? I'll tell you a story of my friend Kay. Some of you know Kay or know who he is, but his name is Kay He. And Kay has become a good friend of mine. And his story is an extreme example of what moving from living someone else's life to living your own life would look like. But I want to go extreme so it's obvious you can see the difference. I'm going to preface that with whatever that might mean to you, it doesn't have to be as drastic as what Kay did. So let me tell you what Kay did. Kay was the youngest managing director at BlackRock. So BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager. They manage trillions of dollars, own significant sizes in all of the companies we love. He was the youngest managing director. And if you're the youngest managing director at the largest asset manager in the world on Wall Street, that comes with a lot of prestige, comes with a lot of responsibility, comes with a lot of clout, and seven-figure salaries and bonuses, a lot of money. But there was something about this role, and I got Kay's permission to tell this, but it's on a podcast, so you can go listen to all the details. I'm not going to give you all the details. But there was something about that life that didn't fit right with Kay. And he had the awareness to pick up on it. So what did he do? He quit without a plan, or with a minor plan. He left Wall Street, millions of dollars, millions of future dollars on the table because it didn't align with who he was, and he realized that. Took his family on a Eat, Pray, Love trip. They went around the world, different stops, and ended up in California. He lives in Manhattan Beach, rents a house 3 blocks off of the ocean because what he wanted to do was surf every day. He says that he is a better husband and a better father when he surfs every day. And he says that tongue in cheek, but there is some truth to that. There are certain things that you do that make you better, even if it might seem selfish. It allows him to be the best person he can be for his family and his friends and his customers and his clients. So he now surfs every single day. He has a count of how many days it is. I've lost it. He's created this life. He doesn't make as much money as he did, but he is in a better situation for he and his family, enjoying life, and he is writing his story instead of letting somebody else write it before. So that's an extreme example of how you can realize that what you're doing in the life you're living is not what you really want to do, and have the courage and the strength to go make that change. And don't lose sight of the message of Kay's story because you're thinking, oh, well, he worked on Wall Street, he made millions of dollars, it's really easy to leave because you have all that money. Well, California is not cheap. And even though there might have been good savings to get him going, he still left millions of dollars off on the table. So there's still a very hard thing to overcome to be able to do that. So we can pick holes at a story like that, but at the end of the day, he followed what his heart was telling him to do, and it's led to a great life that I don't think he would change. Actually, I know he wouldn't change it because he talks about it. So that's an extreme example. I'm not suggesting that on the other side of this talk and whatever else thinking and journaling you might do, that you need to quit your job and go do something different. It could be something very minor. It could be a hobby that you once had as a kid that you didn't pick up. It could be, as Morgan told me earlier, she always loved photography, but her family is social workers. So she went into social work and put the camera down. But she's back and got the camera back today. It could be something very, very minor. You just never know where it's going to go. And that's what I want to kind of, evoke tonight in this talk, is getting you thinking about, whose life am I living? If your life was a story, are you the author? And maybe you're working with an editor to help you clean it up. Or is somebody ghostwriting your story for you? Only you're going to be able to know that. And the reality of it is, if you choose to let somebody ghostwrite your life, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're okay with it. My fear is a lot of people don't know somebody else is writing their story until it's too late, or they never know. So that's the beginning of kind of this concept of, are you living your life? I like better, if I were to rewrite the title, it'd be something along the lines of like, are you writing or is somebody ghostwriting for you? But that's where I want us to go. And it's not easy in the moment to know if you're writing your story or if somebody else is writing it for you, because you're in the middle of your life. So it's not necessarily easy to know. And how do I know that? Because I lived it. So I have another photo to show you. And this is a moment where I was letting somebody else ghostwrite my life, and you can see it on my face. And you can see it in the clothes that I'm wearing and the way my hair is styled. Like, this is when I worked. So I had a plan to one day start my own firm, which eventually I would do. But I deviated from that plan. I met somebody else and I gave her the pen and wrote this story of taking over a firm and being connected in the city, and this great life of wealth and connections that she built, I thought could become mine. And even in the moment, I feel like I knew that I was letting that happen, but I thought, hey, I've got to pay my dues and this will go. And I have no regrets at it because it's a part of my story which allowed me to get to where I am today. But that is not me. I mean, it's me, but that's not me. And you can see it in my face and you can see it in my eyes. And how do I know that you won't know necessarily that someone else is writing your life? If you would have asked me back then if I was happy, I would have told you yes. I got a beautiful family. I'm still a financial advisor. I have an opportunity to grow into this great career and at this great firm. I was happy. It wasn't until I got on the other side that I realized that I really wasn't happy. But in the moment, I didn't know because I didn't know I wasn't penning my own story. So I've been there, which is why I feel like I am qualified to talk a little bit about it. And I want more people to realize what the other side of that feels like because I know what it feels like. I was on the news last week in preparation for kind of trying to market this, and Angela Ganote said something to the extent of asking or hinting at, well, it's because you experienced this. And I was like, yes. And she's like, it's like one of those things like when you realize something new, you want everybody to know about it. And it's exactly right. The tough thing is I can't force everybody to experience and realize what I did. My only hope is that I can help them figure it out sooner than they would have on their own. So I've been there, I've experienced it. How do we get to a point where someone else is writing our own story? Ernest Hemingway has a phrase, I forget what the question was. Like, I think it may have been, how do you fall in love? And it was gradually then suddenly. But there's another version of that that's slowly and all at once. And a little fun fact, there's a local author by the name of John Green who's written a lot of books. He's the one who pens slowly then all of a sudden. But he attributes the phrase to being inspired by Hemingway. I thought it was kind of interesting. But slowly then all at once is, I believe, how this happens. And you only have to go look back at your own life. You know, at a certain point, I think we've all woken up and just been like, how did I get here? And it happens in different phases and different things set it off. How did I get here? Because you at that moment, you can't remember. It's slowly built up and then boom, I'm 41, I have 3 kids. How did I get here? Well, the slowly part of it is, if we go all the way back, I think when we're young, I think Silas is writing his own story right now. You come to my house, he's outside in the backyard, barefoot, in the mulch, playing with toys in this own little world that he's creating. We haven't gotten to him yet to put parameters on what he can do and what he can be. When we're young, we have a clean slate. We're imaginative, we're creative, the sky's the limit. And then things start to happen. We get older, and I don't like to say, well, we get indoctrinated into a system. And I don't say that from a standpoint of a conspiracy theory or a negative way, but the reality of it is our society creates a system that we have to go into. We have to go into school. It's a law. Your kids have to go to school. And then when you get into school, there are subjects that they have to study to pass a test. So these parameters that are set there with good intentions, but they begin to write our stories for us. I lost all of my creativity when I was younger. Not because anybody took it away from me purposely, but there was not an outlet for me to continue to explore my creativity, and therefore it went away. Thankfully, it found me. And Silas is extremely creative, and I won't let him lose that. So we get into this system, and we start to have these choices made for us. And elementary school goes to middle school goes to high school, now we're into college, and we're making all these decisions along the way. We get to make a few elective choices in high school. We get to choose our major in college. But when we go through that process, and if we're honest with ourselves, how much agency do we have in the choices that we made? And how much agency were we really capable of at some points? Probably not as much as we thought. I went to college. I majored in econ. I didn't know what econ was. The reason I studied econ is because my dad majored. My plan was to go to law school at the end of college. Why did I want to go to law school? My great uncle went to law school. My cousin went to law school. In my story of life, I think my dad wanted to go to law school but never went. So I wanted to go to law school. These were decisions that I was moving towards, but when I look back, I didn't choose those. They were put in front of me, and because I just kind of wanted you to tell me where to go when I was going to go do it, I followed. Thankfully, and I didn't know it at the time, I was aware enough of my intuitions and my gut feelings to realize that when I met Ange, I didn't want to go to law school. I knew that 3 more years of school was not in the cards because I didn't want to delay seeing where that part of my life would go. So I didn't. And I took the pen back, and I stumbled around and found my way to finance, and the rest is history. But those decisions were not necessarily fully my choice. And I do think we need some guidance along the way, because at young ages, we're not capable of knowing what we don't know and knowing what we should be doing. Which brings me to, as I talk about being influenced and other people writing our story, I think of it more as we need editors. We need people to help us. And we need to understand that most of the time, this influence on us is not coming from negativity. The influence we receive from our loved ones, from teachers, from coaches, is coming from a place of love. They want to see us succeed. They don't want to see us get hurt. But what we don't realize, and what they may not realize, is that the influence they're putting on us is also bringing the influences that were put on them. And the influences that were put on them were put on somebody else. And now we start to have all of these influences that are based in other people's traumas that shape one person's life, that shape another, and keep on going. Maybe at some point in your life, you wanted to start a business. But somebody in your family or somebody in your circle told you, entrepreneurship is too risky, most small businesses fail. So you never started a business. That person either experienced it themselves or somebody else told them that entrepreneurship was risky. So you see, we get these influences put on us out of concern and out of care, but they end up maybe moving us away from where we're supposed to go. And the people who are trying to help us have no way to know what are we supposed to be doing. Your creator, what did that creator create you for? What is your purpose in this whole grand scheme? You were given gifts and talents to help make this world a better place. Only you know what those are. Some of us can identify, maybe help you figure it out, but nobody else knows what you're supposed to be doing except for you. So when I talk about these influences, they don't coming from a place of control. Sometimes they are. Sometimes there are vindictive people in our life who want to control us to keep us down because they have so much trauma that misery loves company. They want you to come down as well. But I do believe that genuinely people are good, and we have good hearts. So it comes from a place of love and care. So slowly and then all at once is how we go from having a blank book to write ourselves to having other people influencing what's being written or even writing it for us. So if that's the case, When we don't know if we're writing our own story or somebody else is writing it for us, how do we start to figure it out? I've got a few ways. Before I get there, I want to preface the next part of what I'm talking about is that I have grown to realize that advice and stories like I'm telling tonight are not meant to be exactly what you should believe and you should follow. What has formed my opinions and my beliefs are based off of my experience and experience I've seen from other people. It's just one person's interpretation of how life may unfold and what things mean. So I don't think that you should take these examples and say this is the exact thing I need to do, but it's one thing you might try to start beginning to figure things out. At the end of the day, I think the best way to figure out who you are, what you're supposed to be doing, is taking all of these stories and these experiences and then seeing what from those you can apply to your life. And then begin to mold your own way. So, with that little disclaimer, the first thing that I would encourage you to look at and consider to determine who's got the pen in the authorship of your story is easy. And it is just one example again, but it's a career test. Examining your career when you were working, and how did you get there? Was that the career that you wanted as a little kid? By show of hands, and you don't have to respond, but show of hands, how many people are in the career that they said they wanted to be when they were a little kid? No one, which is what I expected. When I was young, I wanted to be an NBA player. I think I wanted to be an astronaut at one point, and even a marine biologist because I thought dolphins were cool. You know, careers that sounded like a lot of fun, but somewhere along the line, those became careers I no longer was interested in and wasn't going to do. Very few of us are what we say we want to be when we're little kids. And I wonder if that little kid actually knows what it is we're supposed to be. So, the career you found yourself in, work backwards from it. How did you get there? How did you find out it was a career? How did I find out I was a financial advisor? Not going to law school, I graduated not knowing what I was going to be. So my dad introduced me to a bunch of business people around town, and I networked. And I met with some financial advisors, and what they said sounded fun. I wanted to have control, I wanted to help people, so I'm going to go do that. Had no idea what it was. I got lucky that I do think that was the path I was supposed to go down, but I don't know if at the end of the day, the financial advisor version of me is the version of me that makes the greatest impact. I think that maybe the financial advisor version of me was just a step towards a bigger impact. Doesn't mean I'm leaving being a financial advisor, so don't worry about that. The handful of clients that are here just means that it helped me realize things like this that may have a greater message that combined with my financial advising work can make a bigger impact. So if you go back, how did you find the career? Chances are somebody put it in front of you. A parent, a teacher, a counselor, and not that that's bad, but if you could go back and pick your career, would you pick it again? So, looking at your career is one example of how you can begin to look at who's writing your script. And you can do that for anything. It could be, the political party that you belong to or you identify with. How'd you get to that? And do you really believe that? So there's multiple things. I just think career is easy because it consumes so much of our life, and it's easy to identify with, I love my job, I hate my job, and then you can work backwards from there. Then all it takes is one instance of realizing that, I wouldn't have chosen that. What other things in my life would I not have chosen? To send you down this rabbit hole of evaluating who you are, where you are, and is that where you're supposed to be, and is that where you want to be? So the first one is career experiment. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to stop and start my camera because I don't have to where I have a big old camera crew that has a camera that runs nonstop. Those things shut off at 30 minutes. So we're good to go now. That was a perfect segue to stop. The second kind of test is ask why. So a little bit along the lines of the career thing, but why? Why do you believe the things that you believe? For the finance guys in here, why do you believe passive investing is better than active investing? Is it because that's what everybody says we're supposed to say, or do you genuinely believe that? Why? Why do I live in Indiana? Why do I like the Colts? Why do we go to hot yoga? Why? Ask why. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret that took me probably 5 or 6 years of working with clients to realize and understand that the answer never lies with the first why. That's the surface level answer. It's not the real answer. The real answer, if you're willing to be honest and do some work, is 4 or 5 whys deep. You've got to keep on asking why. And asking why can be scary because it means you're going to have to be honest with yourself and be truthful. And if you're truthful and honest, you might discover something that could upend your life, taking you from millions of dollars on Wall Street to living a good life in California. And there's a lot of sacrifice and change and people to be impacted that could change that. That's scary. I think a lot of people avoid why subconsciously rather than consciously. They just don't want to deal with what they might find out. I'm weird in that I see pretty much the silver lining in everything. There's a handful of situations where I have a hard time finding a positive to pull out of it. But I look at asking why as a win-win. Win number 1 would be you ask why on all these critical things in your life and you reaffirm your beliefs. You reaffirm why you are doing the thing you do or you believe the thing you believe. And now you know without a shadow of a doubt you are writing your story. You are living the life you're supposed to because you asked yourself why, you challenged it, and you overcame all those challenges and still maintain that same belief. You have nothing to fear. You're where you're supposed to be. So that's a win number 1. Win number 2 is you ask why and you realize someone else is writing my story. I don't really believe this, or I don't really want to do that. And while that might be scary, the win in that is now you have an opportunity to change it. You don't have to keep on going doing the thing you don't enjoy or having a belief you don't want to believe. You can recenter things that align with who you really are, which will bring a greater sense of happiness. So I don't see a downside to it. Now, the second win may bring some more hard work and some stress and some pain maybe, but when you get on the other side of all that, totally worth it. And again, I speak from experience. I've gone from that side where someone else is writing to getting on my own. And it is much, much better. It's why I want you all here tonight. I want you to experience what I'm experiencing because it's so great. And it's on the other side of the question of why. And the final thing is if you ask why and you get to the root of it and you still want to maintain even though you're supposed to change, well, at least you know. And you're making a conscious decision to continue to do something that maybe doesn't fully align with who you are, and you know. Versus you don't know. And you never knew, which means you end up regretting certain things in your life. So ask why. And then the third way is less of a test, and it's more abstract, which I like abstract. I like to operate in the abstract because it allows you to find your own meaning. But the final thing is, it's a feeling. And maybe you've felt it before, but this feeling is something that I can't describe to you. The closest thing I can relate it to would be, it's kind of like your intuition, but it's a stronger feeling. So that gut feeling that tells you not to do something or to do something, you should always listen to it. Your gut will never lie. But it's kind of like that, but it's only stronger. You feel compelled to do something. You feel that something's not right. When you feel it, you'll know it and you'll remember it tonight. And if you felt it before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I know a few people in here that I'm pretty sure have felt it. So while it is abstract, there is this feeling that you will identify with, and you need, I would encourage you to explore that feeling. Let that feeling guide you for a little while and take you down some avenues that maybe you've not gone down before. Blaze a new path and try something else. And don't be afraid to go down some paths that are new and realize that's not it and turn around and pivot. And just go back and look at my career, mainly on the content creation side and some things I do. I'm the king of pivots. Ask Ange. Drives her crazy. But going down these paths and experiencing these things allowed me to continue to write my own story and figure out my lane, which now I know, which brings us here tonight. So ask why. Those 3 ways are 3 ways you might be able to figure out who's writing your story. And I want to make sure it's clear, if somebody else is writing your story, there's no judgment here. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think some people in this world need somebody else to guide them where they go, and that's okay. And that's okay for them. And honestly, I'm not trying to help them, and I don't think I can. I don't think this message will resonate with them. But there are a lot of us that if we knew somebody was writing our story, we'd be more interested in getting that pen back. Or we know it, and we know where we want to go, and we need a little bit of encouragement to go ahead and go and pursue that life that we want. That life that I call the authentic life. Little tease for the next one, but I won't go too much. So those are 3 ways we can begin to figure out who's writing the story. And I think it's important for you to understand the risks associated with letting somebody else write your story. The first one is you constantly have this misalignment in your life. And this misalignment is just kind of like things just don't feel right. Sometimes it may be the compounding, negativity that comes in life and just kind of compounds on top of that. One thing leads to another. It could be just this unsettlement of just like, I just can't quite feel right. And it's because you're not being the person that you were created to be. Because the people who have helped you get where you are didn't know you were supposed to be over here, yet they directed you over here. And your soul and your spirit and your heart is trying to get you here. It's misalignment. So misalignment and living with that feeling is one risk. Unhappiness, frustration kind of come with that as well. I think the biggest personal risk to not writing your own story, I mentioned already once, is regret. Regretting not becoming the person that you wanted to become, that you felt you should become. And it could be a number of reasons. Fear, didn't know, but I think regret is it. And the bad thing about regret is, from my experience, regret doesn't go away. Regret either is accepted or it continues to live. And my goal in the work that I do as an advisor is to help people minimize that regret by either experiencing what they really want to experience or making a decision to not go that route for reasons that are important to them. So going back to, doesn't necessarily mean you have to start writing the story fully yourself, but if you made that decision to let that pen be held by somebody else, you know you made that decision. So, one of my goals, or one of the things I would love, would be to live somewhere warm all year round. California always comes to mind. But I have made a conscious decision. I've run the numbers. I've made a conscious decision to not go to California because I know my family wouldn't be as happy there. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think once they got there, they would be. But on paper, and if I asked them, they would not be happy. So I made the decision that we're not going to move to California because while that would make me a little happier, it's not worth sacrificing my family's happy. I'm not going to be 103 years old regretting that I didn't go to California because I know why I didn't go to California. On the flip side, if I never had the conversation, I never ran the numbers, I just assumed I couldn't do it, or it was always in my mind but I never even brought it to the table to talk about, then I'm going to regret it because I don't know why I didn't go. And that could lead resentment. I could resent my family for not letting me live in the sun all year round because of how good it makes me feel, because I never even talked about it, I just assumed it. Never explored it. So, to me, regret is addressed by experiencing it or understanding why you choose not to experience. But if you don't explore it, I think that regret eats at you later on. And then there's a bigger risk, a universal risk, that impacts all of us and everybody else. If you allow somebody else to write your story and they happen to get it wrong, which is probably what's going to happen because they don't know where you're supposed to go, then the world gets cheated of your unique gifts and talents that you were blessed with to bring to the world because you never use them. And that means we don't get the next great artist or the next great musician or author or teacher or social worker or whatever it may be, because you're never allowed the opportunity to fully step into the thing that you were created to do because that person didn't know, or we allowed them to tell us you can't go do that. And just, again, one more reminder, that thing doesn't have to be a career. It could be something that you just do as volunteer work or something on the side. It's a passion, it's an interest that calls at you that you want to do. What that is and what that means is irrelevant. You should be doing it because there's a reason you're called to doing that. When you feel called to do something, it's that deep feeling. It's your heart pulling you over there. It's not just, that sounds like fun, like it's pulling you over there. So I would make the argument that you owe it to all of us to understand who's writing your story and determine if you want to write it yourself and get to where you're probably supposed to be. And you might already be there. That's the fun thing in this whole experiment, is you might already be there. So how many people did I scare? Hopefully nobody. Hopefully your mind is racing with all these ideas and you're pulling back in your memory things from the past that you never did that you wish you would have. And hopefully coming out of tonight, maybe you go do it in a small way. All right, make sure I don't forget anything. All right. I told myself I was going to look at my notes, but I want to make sure I hit everything. But in all of this, there is good news. In that you have choice. You can take your agency back, and you can write the story that you want to write. You can live the life that you want to live. So many times we're encouraged not to do that. And again, it's coming from other people who mean well, but they were told the same thing. And I think we're entering a stage of, I don't know if it's a stage of life, but just a stage of being where more people are interested in exploring those interests than ever before. And maybe that's just because I'm very interested in it and I'm picking up on it more. But I think coming out of COVID and that experience opened up a lot of people's eyes. Yeah, I read some woo-woo stuff and some spiritual stuff, and some people believe we're going through a great awakening, like universally, and everybody's waking up. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know that people of all ages are expressing more interest of doing things that bring them greater happiness, help them find purpose, and help them live more fulfilled lives. And if I look back even at my earlier in my career, people were more interested in just going with the flow. Working for 30 years, collecting their pension, living a good life, but not really putting a lot of detail to the life. So I do think that things are shifting a little bit. So we have choice. We can take back the agency. You can, in fact, create the life that you want. Another tease that'll come a few from now. But there is a lot of good news in all of this. But it does require some work. It can be scary, but I believe that it's worth it. So this is the part of a talk where people usually have a solution to offer, or an actionable item as you leave tonight to go take home and do. I don't have one. There is no universal answer that I can give you that will apply to everybody. We all come here tonight at different stages of life, different wants, different experiences, different traumas. That there's not one answer I can say, if you do this, you'll figure it all out and everything will be great. So I don't have an answer for you. I gave you some things to try and start to explore, and I would encourage you to continue to explore those and push those boundaries. But I'll leave you with a thought. You came here on a Wednesday night. Some of you because you're very kind and you want to support me, but still, you made a choice to come down here based off of a talk with the title of, Are You Living Someone Else's Life? Why? Why'd you come? And remember, it's 4 or 5 whys down is the real reason. And that might be the thing that sparks you going. So thank you for coming and listening to me ramble for 35 minutes. It was everything I hoped it would be and more. I hope it was for you. And again, I don't claim to have all the answers. My goal is to encourage you and help you begin to find your own answers. The answer to all of this lies within you. And are you able to find that in yourself? And that is doing work on yourself. And how you do that, I don't think there's a right answer. So thank you again. And hopefully I will see you at future talks. And if you don't, I'll send you those as well. And when I send those follow-ups, any feedback that you could give me would be much appreciated, good or bad. I want to do more of these. I enjoy doing this. And I want to make sure it's worth the people's time that comes out. So with that, I'll let you maybe fill up some coffee. We can do a little small talk and head on out of here so Tristan and Jeremy can wrap up and have an evening. So thank you very much. What's up, dude?
Why didn't you invite me?
Huh? Why did I invite you in? You want me to talk to you about it? No. Okay, go get Roman.
Yep. Good job.
Thank you.